My name's Steve Steinbrenner, and I'm with Crossroads Tax Advisors, and we're a accounting firm that works exclusively with dentists and physicians, built from scratch. And I want to address something in this video that's very specifically targeted to the dentist or physician that works in a private practice that may have a little bit more of a mature practice. You've been around for a couple years and you're saving for retirement a little bit, but you want to know how to get to the next level, maybe more options for you to save for retirement. And so I asked a friend of mine to come back. I'm going to reintroduce Tob Bodin. Tom is with Buckingham Strategic Wealth. He is a strategic financial planner, certified financial planner, certified advisor as well, and the practice integration advisor for Buckingham, which means he specializes with dentists and physicians in private practice. Hello, Tom.
Steve, always good to be with you.
Thanks for coming back. And for some of you that may have seen Tom before, we did a part 1 video series that you can also see on our website. We'll have the links here on this video for you to watch that. In that video, part 1 was specifically targeted to the new practice owner that may not be ready to save a lot for retirement, but they'd like to get something started and something basic. So I asked Tom to come back and kind of take us through part 2. It is, an example of what that practice may do when they get to the point that they're ready for more options for retirement. So thank you, Tom. Tom, let me ask you the first question. And we kind of painted the picture with that part 1 video, but if you're a dentist or physician watching this now, like, how do you know that you might be ready for another option versus what you're doing now, which could be a simple IRA or a basic 401k? What are the signs, whether they're in the practice or whether they're in their personal life, that they might be ready to get to the next level for saving for retirement?
Yeah, a couple of things that we look for when we start to explore really expanding what we can do on tax deferred savings. The first step is, okay, are we maximizing what we already have? In our first video where we talked about IRAs, simple SEPs, up to 401ks and 401ks with profit sharing, if we're on that end of the spectrum where we've got the 401k, including the profit sharing, the owner is maxing out what they're able to do in the plan, their deferrals and that profit sharing piece of it, then we can start to look at what the next level can be. Want to make sure that we see that the practice is mature enough that we're at a steady state in terms of revenue, that our production numbers are fairly consistent over time, that we don't foresee some major cash outlays within the practice in the upcoming maybe 2 to 3 years, and that we've got that ability to really kind of plan around what's our future cash flow going to look like, barring, obviously coming off of COVID, barring any kind of major externality events. When we're there and we're maximizing what we have, and we have cash flow that's supporting our lifestyle, and we have some of this excess cash flow that's getting spun out of the practice, then really kind of digging in and taking a look, do we want to really kind of combine some of these plans together and really supercharge what the owner is able to do in terms of tax deferred savings?
You made a couple comments about the practice, whether it's practice collections or practice growth rates. Are there triggers there too? Is there a practice that needs to be a certain size and collection? I know no practice is the same. They're like snowflakes, but for a family general practice, is there a trigger for collection size or net income or whatever that makes you say, okay, I think you can support a more sophisticated plan?
Yeah, really going to be looking at profitability. When we look at that more sophisticated plan, want to make sure kind of as we level set the 401k piece of it, that's a plan that we contribute to. The type of plan that we're talking about to pair with it really is a type of pension plan. Really common in our industry, in the dental industry, that the best pension plan for a practice is a cash balance plan. In our prior conversation, we talked about some of the administrative and some of the staff costs that go along with that 401k plan. Well, in a cash balance plan, we also have some administrative costs. We're going to have a certain percentage that goes to staff. So when I'm looking at a practice and the financials of the practice, looking at that, what's that profit coming out of the practice? What's our operating cash flow? And comparing that to what is the doctor's lifestyle expenditure. Really want to make sure we're not impeding on the lifestyle, but that we've got cash flow that overcomes some of those costs to make it a true benefit to the owner. Usually don't like looking at these tools unless we've got a sense that we can put away at least 50,000 a year. And in this type of package, I mean, we can go up to $200,000, $300,000 of deferred tax savings a year.
So let's start talking specifically about those options. So
Yeah.
the bridge is in part one, the new practice owner had, give us a refresher, what options to save for retirement in simple terms.
Yep. Starting from the smallest, IRA, individual retirement account. Then we move to a simple account, can move to a SEP or a 401k only. And then the 401k with profit sharing, a 401k with profit sharing. And individuals max benefit out of that if they are under 50 years old is $58,000. So
Okay.
a lot of room for savings there. Once we hit it and we're at that wall, we've got the ability to push a little further. If the
Tom,
plan,
let me have you repeat that. You're
Okay.
talking about a 401k, but it has a profit share component. And what was the amount you can put away there?
if you're under 50, it's about 58,000.
Okay.
Yep, over 50, you get a little catch up and it's about 64,500.
I'm guessing that alone is a surprise to a lot of people because they get caught up with what kind of the government's max amount of deferral to a 401k can be, and they forget about the components of the profit share and or if a spouse contributes and participates as well, which is a whole nother conversation. So now we're starting to cook with gas, right? And now we have the bridge into part two. And now I'm a dentist or a physician that has very strong income. I've maxed out my existing plan. What are you going to start to show me now as an option?
Yeah, so that pension plan element to it, as I mentioned, cash balance plan is kind of the normal for it. We can put that together with a 401k, and it's called a paired plan. That paired plan gives you both this thing that you contribute to, as well as this pension that you're accruing benefits in. When we think about pensions, we do have to have a certain level of understanding that there is a defined level of benefit that accrues to each participant. The majority of that accrues to the owner because the owner is generally the one with the highest income in the practice. Those benefits accrue based off of income. So owners end up getting a lion's share of what can go into that cash balance plan. And we use the 401k and the cash balance plan to maximize what the owner's family is able to retain and set aside tax-free. Now that takes, where we talked about that $58,000 in the 401k. When we put those two plans together, it's going to depend on demographics. It's going to depend on the age of the owner. It's going to depend on their ability to fund. But we've had some of our clients who have been able to set aside $200,000, $300,000 a year deferred from tax in those really high earning years, giving us the opportunity. We do a lot of work together and we do a lot of tax planning with our clients. And as we get on the other side of a transition, then we really work with you guys to make sure, okay, let's get this as efficiently out as possible. So we set it aside during your high income, high tax years, and we bring it out during years where you're not going to be forced into the highest marginal rates.
And I think the important thing to point out there is that the income has to drive it.
Income
right?
has to drive. Yep.
It is a participatory plan, so there's a staff component to it.
Correct.
And that it should involve your tax advisor, and you should be having a powwow with everybody that's involved in cash flow and tax planning to make these decisions, right?
For sure.
Let me ask you kind of the final question is, what are some of the pitfalls that you also see, whether it's options for the sophisticated private practice owner that they get involved in retirement savings, options that may be too risky or may not be appropriate for them, or anything for the viewers to watch out for, be careful of?
Yeah. I want to break it apart in kind of two sections to answer the question. First would be directly to what we're talking about today with the cash balance plan. I have seen where the dentist, the owner gets very excited about the tax savings and really doesn't think through how that cash flow and that mandatory contribution is going to affect their personal life. So like you said, sitting down with your full team, making sure that we've got a good understanding of the practice cash flow, what you need on the personal lifestyle side of things, how this fits into your financial plan, can be really important to ensure that we've got the ability to fund on a regular basis and we're building as flexible of a contribution window as possible. The other, within that cash balance plan, what we have to fund is a factor of how are benefits accruing in the balance of what is in the plan itself. Getting too risky with your assets in a cash balance plan can bring in a lot of external risk to your ability to fund. So when we look at how we manage assets across these different qualified plans, as well as maybe after tax accounts, cash balance plan is really where we want to be as conservative as possible so that our forward-looking cash flow can be planned around and isn't reactive to markets depending on what's happening there. Outside of the cash balance plan, I see really kind of two common areas where once we start to get to that 401k, we're maxed out, we're looking for other areas to invest. Never let the tax tail wag the financial plan dog. Don't go out and buy things you don't need solely for tax benefit. Don't invest in tax schemes thinking that there's some magic bullet out there. As we know, it takes just detailed planning, keeping your eyes on the options. If something sounds too good to be true, bring it back to your team. Make sure you talk it out. And then the last piece, concentrated risk. You've got a lot of concentrated risk in your practice, in your clinical life, in your clinical career. When we are building your wealth, we want to do that with an appropriate eye towards risk. And so some of the different investment schemes or investment opportunities that owners are presented with can carry with them a lot of concentrated risk. And we just want to make sure that they are aware of not only the upside potential that they're going to be sold, but the downside risk that they need to make sure that their team is reviewing and informing them about.
Tom, thanks again. I appreciate it. We're going to have your contact info probably at the bottom of the screen right now on this video. So if people have questions, it's okay that they reach out to you directly and you'd be happy to address that.
I would love to. I appreciate it.
And selfishly, thanks for our clients, because we have them ask about this kind of stuff all the time, which gave rise to the idea. But there's a lot of people on social media that will benefit from this as well. And thanks to Buckingham for letting you out of the office to do this today.
Greatly appreciate it. Thanks, Steve.
Talk to you again another time, Tom.
Got
See
it.
ya.